Now, a Nobel Prize brings enormous prestige, a big cheque and potentially even bigger earnings for both the laureate and the organisations they're attached to. Well, for more on this, let's speak with the editor of New Scientist magazine and a columnist for the UK Daily Telegraph, Roger Highfield, who incidentally made a scientific breakthrough himself by bouncing a neutron off a soap bubble. Now, we'll get to that later, but first let's get to Roger Highfield, who joins us live from London. Roger Highfield, greetings and thanks for your time tonight. Firstly, in the area that you know of so much, science. Now, generally speaking, how do potential Nobel Prize candidates come into view? Is it by the sheer force of their discoveries, or is it through a marketing campaign by certain individuals or organisations, or a combination of both?
Well, there's a lot of lobbying behind the scenes. I mean, scientists are asked for their views by the Nobel Committee. And the good thing about science is that you can look at how influential papers are by citation statistics and things like that. And actually, there are lots of examples, you know, where scientific discoveries were thought to be completely insane. You know, like the Nobel Prize for Chemistry this year goes to a chap who discovered the first evidence of quasi-crystals, which are unusual structures. And so appalled were his colleagues at the time when he found this that they said, look, we don't think you should belong to this department anymore. And, you know, the prize is a wonderful vindication of the fact that other scientists looked at his work, assessed it, and it's proved to be very influential. So there's a lot of lobbying behind the scenes. And I have to say, you know, this really is the Oscars of science. This is probably the only prize I know of where scientists would sell their grandmothers on eBay and they would backstab a colleague just to be in with a chance of getting the prize. But the great thing is there's lots of hard data out there to judge their performance. Well,
if they do have to sell their grandmothers on eBay, there are studies that suggest they are rewarded in other ways, not that you can ever make up for selling your grandmother, but there are... It appears to be a much bigger earner potentially than just the cheque itself that you get as the winner.
Well, it has all sorts of knock-on effects. I mean, as one Nobel laureate told me, his phone didn't stop ringing, not just that day, but for about the next 5 years. I mean, you get invited to everything. You're suddenly thought to be a world authority on everything. Your university vice-chancellor will wheel you out at every opportunity to say, look at this magnificent laureate, he works in our institution, give us more money, and so on and so forth. And really, the prize is almost bigger than any individual can bear now. It has a huge, huge effect.
Tell us more about the institutions there, that the benefits that come to them. How does a Nobel Prize change their standing and their ability to attract both funding and students, perhaps?
Well, you can see a great example in the UK. You know, last year, Andre Geim had moved from the Netherlands, where he did brilliant work on something called graphene, a kind of wonder material. Also did some slightly strange things, levitating hamsters with magnetic fields as well. He's rather a fun guy. He was lured to Manchester. Then he won the Nobel Prize with a colleague of his at Manchester. And now, of course, he's seen as an incredible kind of trophy by the university, saying, look at us. And lo and behold, the government has just, UK government has just funded a big graphene initiative. And so I think, you know, this really did help seed a lot of attention for a very interesting field and gave Manchester tons of publicity.
But Roger, I read in becoming a trophy, there are perils, there are risks, where one laureate said it can produce an infuriating side effect where people don't want to question you or actually speak to you. They just want to listen to you in awe, presuming everything you say must be very, very important. And he said that's unhealthy.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I should say there's one other benefit, which is there was a University of Warwick study that showed that Nobel laureates tend to live 2 years longer than a kind of equivalent peer group. But you're right, because people sort of suddenly think, crikey, he or she a Nobel laureate, they must be right on everything. You do get what I like to call Nobel syndrome, where suddenly after a few years of complete sycophancy, they start to spout complete rubbish. It's usually about things they don't know much about. And I probably shouldn't mention the examples, but there are some spectacular examples out there of people believing vitamins having amazing effect, of denying that AIDS is caused by HIV, you name it.
What about for something like science? Now, I'm not sure what it's like there in Britain, but here in Australia, scientists say they're having real trouble spiking interest in the public and getting kids to pursue a career in science. How much does a Nobel Prize in an area such as physics or chemistry spike the public interest and perhaps lead to folks wanting to go into that career and that area of inquiry?
I think it just depends so much, on who it is. I mean, in Australia, we had a lovely example with Robin Warren and Barry Marshall. They used to console themselves with a dinner each year at the time of the Nobel Prizes, saying, we should have got a Nobel Prize for showing that gut bugs caused stomach ulcers. And lo and behold, during the dinner, the phone rang. There's this funny Swedish accent on the other end of the phone. They won the Nobel Prize. I mean, those are really inspirational examples. There are people like Harry Kroto, who won the Nobel Prize in the UK for Buckminster Fullerene. He's dedicated really his life since then to visiting schools and getting kids interested in chemistry. So it actually galvanises kids to take an interest all sorts of ways. And of course, we've got Andre Geim with his levitating hamsters and frogs as well. We mustn't forget that.
Now, what do you think the likelihood is that in some time in the future, a Nobel Prize for chemistry will be awarded for the bouncing of a neutron off a soap bubble? And what does that mean?
I would say, well, it was a way to measure ultra-thin films just a few molecules thick. I mean, I'd love to think that I could be up for a Nobel, but alas, I don't think so. But, anyway, what can I say? You can dream, can't you?
Indeed. And promise me you won't sell your grandmother to win it.
Oh, damn. It's too late, I'm afraid.
Roger Highfield, the editor of New Scientist magazine, thanks so much for your time from London tonight.
Cheers. My pleasure.